Live from the NHL Draft in Las Vegas, presented by Coolbet, Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily, with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
Greetings from Las Vegas, gang. Welcome to a NHL Draft Day edition of Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily, presented by our friends at Coolbet, live from Sin City, just a few blocks away from where we'll be tonight. The Sphere in Las Vegas as the first round of the National Hockey League draft happens, followed by rounds 2 through 7 tomorrow morning. Great to have you with us here on Winnipeg Sports Talk. Andrew Paterson, Michael Remis. Quite a day yesterday. I had a fun show, lots to talk about with Mike McIntyre, amongst others. And then we headed down to the NHL Awards, and to absolutely nobody's surprise, Connor Hellebuyck is, for the second time, the best goalie in the National Hockey League, winner of the Vezina Trophy. We'll get to all of that. Been a bit of a slower morning today. For those of you that were expecting some early draft day fireworks, just had a trade with Montreal. But it's a draft capital trade, moving up in the first round. We'll touch on that in a minute, as well as a few of the other things we've heard. And then we'll dive into the Jets' predicament, situation, and what may or may not be happening with Winnipeg tonight. Murat is going to join us here at the Encore. We're still waiting to find out what is up with Ken. Ken is going to join us in about an hour. He might join us here. He might be on video. We are not too sure. But listen, first and foremost, a huge thanks to Coolbet for making the Vegas draft trip happen. Appreciate them. If you haven't played a Coolbet before, just did the lock shop. So much going on this weekend. You can bet the NHL draft. We'll kind of update those numbers a little bit later on and let you know what we're hearing and what is up on the board, as well as the Euro. Huge game for Canada tomorrow against Chile. If you haven't played a Coolbet, head on over there, coolbet.com, and on your first deposit, use the promo code WST for a 100% bonus up to $200 on your first deposit. In addition to thanking our friends at Coolbet, just want to give a quick shout out to all the sponsors that make Winnipeg Sports Talk happen each and every day. Princess Auto, of course, the big Canada Day celebration is on Monday. It should be awesome. Looking forward to that. The sponsors of CFL 110, Garage Living Winnipeg, and our pal Pat Kanuga at 999-1234, Rollies Transfer, Consolidated Supply, Canadian Club, Manitoba Battery, F Apparel, Wallace & Wallace, Boston Pizza, Royal Sports, Little Brown Jug, the Winnipeg Gold Eyes, the Beer Can, Next Door and Hoagie Boys, Aikens Lake, Assiniboia Downs, Breezy Bend Golf and Country Club. We'll get to a big Rocket Mortgage update a little later on, and the why not question of the day for Not Autocorp over at Waverly and McGillivray. Michael Remis, what's going on?
Feeling good here. The anticipation. We are getting ready for the NHL draft tonight. We're also on trade watch. We did have a trade to announce with Montreal and LA, just a pick swap. Montreal moving up a couple spots from 26 to 21 in exchange for 2 picks. Not the trade that we're seeing in the Jets fans in the chat right now are looking for.
People are fired up. They want action right now.
Everyone's rating just 29 with exclamation mark. I'm not sure who they're
who could we be talking about? Nate McKinnon for winning the Hart and the Lester B. Pearson award last night?
Yeah, congratulations to him. So, we had a great night at the awards. Yesterday, Connor Hellebuyck spoke to the media, first time hearing from him for a while. So congratulations to him winning his second Vezina
Some
trophy.
great questions in that scrum yesterday too. I don't know who was up to that, but there was some.
Yeah, but here we're feeling good. We're ready to see what happens tonight at the Sphere, which should be a very cool event.
Yeah, hey, let's just quickly talk about the NHL awards for a minute, because I don't know what it looked like on television. And listen, I'll take you behind the scenes. So there's a bus that comes from Encore, which is the NHL hotel and the media hotel where we were at, over to the Fontainebleau. And we went there. There's all sorts of, people with the league, I would imagine friends and family of the nominees that are staying here that, they come over on the buses. So we roll into the Fontainebleau. There's a lady there with the sign that's telling everyone that's there as guests to basically go to one spot. And we said, well, where's the media check-in? Because we've got to get a creds and then get in. So she tells us to go to the 4th floor, which was in fact fake news. We believed her though. We go up to the 4th floor, and I mean, these hotels and convention areas are so massive. And we walked what looked like, it probably was close to a kilometer, like the distance of this building from end to end. And there was nothing going on. There was no people there, although then we see some security and realize that we're right in the staging area of the other big event in Vegas tonight, Remis. And that is the Power Slap event that's happening. I'm sure some of you have seen these clips online. And I'm down with the UFC. I'm not a UFC hardo, but I'll maybe check out some of the fights tomorrow night. The Power Slap is the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen in my life. And yet, they continue to grow. I guess Dana White's behind it as well, and the people behind UFC. So for these big UFC events, they do Power Slap the night before. So we got a chance to see sort of behind the scenes and all of that. But then we went up, had a bite to eat, waited for the event to start. And from looking at the reaction on social media of people that watched it, they thought that it was a complete disaster. And this Matt Friend, the comedian that was hosting, was getting absolutely railed. We were big fans of his performance last night. I thought he was hilarious. And maybe the funniest part of it all, and maybe we are in the minority, we were upstairs in this theater in the media area, and Friend's dropping his monologue or the intro of all of it, and it's quiet. And if you just listen to the media area, all you could hear was me and you killing ourselves at the back, because he actually did do some great jokes. I don't know whether maybe it was just the mood of the NHL players who looked like they were going through some sort of torture, having to sit through that for the majority of the hour. Very short presentation and production.
Yeah, the NHL Awards has been pretty long and boring for a couple of years, and they shortened it to an hour this year and did a lot of the awards announcing on the way up. They had everyone in a nice theater there. Connor Hellebuyck there was a big cheer when he won his award.
There was a bunch of Jet fans there, and I'm sure there was, some people that were supporting Hellebuyck. But Helly, even at the end of his speech, shouted out those fans, and they got up and went at it again. And this was not the lower level, which is the invited guests. Yeah. This was the area of the limited number of tickets in this theater. So whoever the Jet fans were there that were supporting our guy Connor Hellebuyck last night, kudos to them, and they got a nice thanks from Connor as well on the stage.
Yeah, I'm seeing the award show getting roasted on X and online. Hustler and I were seen upstairs chuckling to the comedian Matt Friend, who I actually knew from the Howard Stern show. He'd been on. He did his Howard Stern impression as part of his monologue. I don't know. He tried to have some fun. He did a couple roast jokes, making fun of Connor Bedard, that he wasn't old enough to drink in Vegas, but went over like a lead balloon. It seemed like none of the players.
We were supporting you, Matt.
Yeah, we enjoyed it, but maybe not many people did. But look, Connor Hellebuyck won second Vezina trophy, and I think when you're with him, puts your place in hockey history. There, not a lot of goalies have won 2 Vezinas, and I do. They just had the Hall of Fame announcement this week, and I do wonder if Connor Hellebuyck now with 2 Vezinas, the Jennings as well, if he could be the first player from Jets 2.0 to make it in the Hockey Hall of Fame when it's all said and done.
Yeah, well, listen, he's definitely on track for that. And, I got a chance to be in that scrum, asked him a little bit about, looking back at last season. He also had a really interesting answer when, I just asked him to just reflect on the 2 years of the Rick Bowness era in Winnipeg. And put it this way, it was in very stark contrast to when he was asked about Paul Maurice. One of the national media or guys from one of the other markets, I'm not sure who it was, asked Hellebuyck about, what Paul Maurice had to say after the Panthers won the Cup, which we certainly talked about on the program, that, he hoped that the Winnipeg Jets would win the Cup or win the next Stanley Cup. And maybe a little weird if he's coaching the Panthers, but notwithstanding. And Hellebuyck didn't say much. They sort of asked him the question again, and he, in a very stoned face, just said, "It was a nice gesture," and moved on, as opposed to what he had to say about the impact that Rick Bowness has had on the team, the culture, and him in particular, speaking that it's an individual award, but it reflects the team overall. It was really interesting to hear just how fondly he looks back at what Rick Bowness did for this hockey club and the direction of them going forward with Scott Arniel, who, of course, was a big part of that coaching staff.
Yeah, and he mentioned that Scott Arniel was aligned, was the word that he used, with Rick Bowness, and I think you're going to see a lot of the same Winnipeg Jets going forward. Hellebuyck mentioning very excited for Dylan DeMello signing an extension. He's number one right side D, but also he's also got a young family and their kids play together. So,
yeah.
Nice. I think the players seem to be getting along, which maybe wasn't the case a couple of years ago. And Rick Bowness came in, rebuilt the culture, and now he's out, and the team's ready to move forward with Scott Arniel.
Chuck Hellebuyck was there as well, looking great, having a good time. I do think we may need to talk to Chuck and get a couple of little mini Vezina trophies, 3D printed.
Of course.
It looked good on a WST set celebrating Connor. But anyways, really great night for Hellebuyck and for the Jets to have it. And listen, Nate McKinnon, though, quickly was the star of the show. And I mean, I guess I was a little surprised. Certainly it didn't seem like a lot of the other media were, and I don't vote on these awards. Nate McKinnon won not only the Hart Trophy, but also the Pearson Award voted by the rest of the players. And I guess the only reason I was maybe, like, I actually did think that there was some suspense as to who was going to win it. Thinking about Connor McDavid's season, Austin Matthews' season, I mean, Nikita Kucherov as well. So for McKinnon to win both in a year where there was such brilliance in the NHL, I think speaks to just how great he was this year. And I mean, a deserving winner of his first Hart Trophy.
Yeah, you look at the three nominees, McDavid, Kucherov, McKinnon. I mean, they're top three in scoring. Kucherov led the league with 144 points. McKinnon 140, McDavid 132. But I think you can go in and say, okay, who played the most minutes 5-on-5, or who got all their points, that weren't empty netters. There's people are looking in who played against the hardest competition. I think you were really splitting hairs when it came. I don't think there was a wrong answer. They're all excellent players. We know Connor McDavid. We just saw Kucherov. He's won a Hart before, and it was McKinnon's first Hart Trophy, which is almost surprising because he's been a top player in this league for a long time. So there was a lot of Avalanche media there covering him, and I guess he did get announced today as well as part of Canada for the Four Nations. So big.
We're gonna get to we'll get to that in just a minute. We do have to touch on the
big night for McKinnon yesterday.
Yeah, definitely. And the one thing I'll say about the players, and I mean, Fred kind of poked fun at it a little bit, is that wasn't a lot of smiles or anything like that. Like, this really looked like work for everybody involved for the most part. I shouldn't say Connor had a big smile on his face and obviously in great spirits winning the award. And afterwards, I mean, the award winners were happy. Shout out to Quinn Hughes as well, who won the Norris Trophy. But I think that they need to have a mandatory cocktail party before the awards, and every one of these guys needs to have like 5 or 6 in them before they get out there. I mean, just to loosen it up a little bit. Like, I will say this, the narrative that hockey players are kind of uptight did not get dispelled at all yesterday with what we saw, at least from the broadcast that was shown to everyone outside of the venue.
Yeah, and when you say putting them in a cocktail party, that reminds me of those all-star drafts where where they were all liquored up. The beers were certainly flowing.
The red Solo cups right on stage.
So maybe you're onto something. They seem to want to have the awards, sponsored event. I think we were on the bus with some people from Upper Deck, so we'll see what happens going forward. I think it seemed like everything was kind of put together. With the season going so long, just very on the fly. And so they opted for the 1 hour show. It was nice. Some people watched it, some people didn't, but they got the awards, and very cool to see all the trophies on stage. I mean, they are part of hockey's history. You see them at the Hall of Fame, and going to put some new names engraved on them.
Yeah, and listen, there's some great stuff. I mean, obviously we were there, so we went down, was in the scrums afterwards. I got some nice photo ops, and your camera really came through. Great shot of Connor Hellebuyck. Photo, Remis. That was up, and obviously Jet fans really liking that on all the WST socials. One other thing from the awards last night. And again, I'd never been to the awards before. I mean, frankly, sitting through an hour or two of those is not really something that has always been attractive to me. But if Connor Hellebuyck's up for the award, we're going to be there. So we're in Vegas, and it's in this theater, right? And the entertainment to get people going was Loud Luxury, a DJ group. And my takeaways from watching those guys do their thing is that looks like the easiest job in the world, to the point when you have two guys together basically playing other people's songs. It was almost comical, and they kept on going back with the commercial. These guys would do their thing, and the shorter guy of the Loud Luxury, seemingly all he did was just this.
And the other guys like this. This is our DJ impression here.
That'll be a good clip. That'll be a good clip. I'm sure you can put that into something. Anyways, it was fun. It was a great night for the Jets and Connor Hellebuyck and all the NHL awards. But now it is about getting down to business tonight, and there is a lot of intrigue as to, what the Winnipeg Jets are up to. Will something happen in regards to a trade? Rutger McGroarty's rights, Nikolai Ehlers. And do the Winnipeg Jets, first and foremost, speaking within the next 24-hour period, do the Jets get back into the first round of the draft? Listen, we've talked to a lot of people, and we'll ask Murat and Ken when they join us here, who have been doing as much digging as they can, both from Jet sources as well as around the league. What sort of capital can the Winnipeg Jets acquire? How important is it to get into the first round? Particular players. I know Mike McIntyre was mentioning that there is quite a lot of interest in a certain son of Jerome McGinley and Carter Yakimchuk as well, I believe, from the Western Hockey League. But regardless of whether the Jets get into the first round and make a pick tonight and where that pick is, certainly from our chat and everyone around it, there are a few names. McGroarty, Ehlers on the way out, and it's safe to say from our bit with Mike McIntyre yesterday, a very large number of Jet fans pretty excited about the rumblings of a potential reunion with one number 29 Patrik Laine.
Well, we started the show and people are just typing 29, and shout out to Connor, who cut the clip of Mike McIntyre saying yesterday, "I have it on fairly good authority that Patrik Laine still holds Winnipeg in extremely high regard." That clip getting just under 50,000 views on X. But the commentary from Jets fans, bring him home, give it to me. I would love this, to be honest. Do it. And proposed deals and bring him back. I've never seen such love for a player, not with the Winnipeg Jets, since I think Bufflin. You want to recreate that magic of 2017, 18. I wonder if it's still there with him, if he can find his game. But that clip I saw also went on the Winnipeg Jets Reddit, and the comments are the things that I would do to make this happen, and just a lot of excitement. I think you look at his salary, and I think it makes it really, really hard. But would be,
the irony of the whole thing is that potentially, depending on what would the arrangements of the deal be, you would have to have salary going back, and depending on what assets the Jets would be giving up the other way, you might be able to add in a Nate Schmidt or a Neil Pionk to potentially be in the mix. We're just going to get the door and welcome in our pal Murat, who's going to join us in a couple minutes here. But I will say this, and listen, I've been pretty straightforward on this to the entire, when we talked about it yesterday on the program. I feel the same way that many people in the chat and in the comments do, would love nothing more than a reunion of Patrick Laine of the Winnipeg Jets. I think the story would write itself, and I also think that this might be one of the best opportunities that he could possibly have to be in a situation that he could get back to where he was when he lit the league on fire in the first couple of years, scoring 36 and 44 goals before things went south. And, I know there's some speculation, but the guy's still on the team. I think for the most part, guys really like Laine. I mean, I think this, not to single one guy out, but it had a lot to do with the way the team was run under Paul Maurice, but particularly in the room with Captain Blake Wheeler. Wheeler's gone. The Jets bought him out. There was a very clear need with the organization to change the culture of the club. And, for better or worse, that started with Blake. He did a lot of great things for the organization, but I think it cost them Laine. And who knows? I mean, if that did happen, and again, we'll see how things proceed with the Laine situation in Columbus and whether his path involves Winnipeg in the short term, long term, whatever. But, moving on to Rick Bowness from Wheeler, I mean, if you didn't believe that, they bought the guy out. This is a guy that still could play, still a productive player. They're usually not in the business of spending that sort of money to have guys play elsewhere. So I really do hold out some hope for that. What we've been hearing is that I think the player would certainly be open to that. And tell you what, the guy that I think would maybe love it the most would be a guy that wasn't even here before in Davis Payne, because for all the talk we've had about the Winnipeg Jet power play, an engaged and motivated and excited Patrick Laine would be something that could turn that around right away. So needless to say, we'll be talking with some others when we get down to the Sphere tonight about that, in addition to all of the picks that are going to be made. Ehlers, though, still probably when talking to people outside, I mean, certainly the fans, we saw what the reaction was when even the name and the possibility of Laine came out, Remo. Ehlers, a similarly beloved player. There are a lot of people that do not want to see him go. But when we're talking to, some of the other insiders and whatnot, that's the guy that they're paying the most close attention to as far as roster players, in addition to everything that's happened with Rutger McGroarty over the last few weeks that's been reported in the last week.
Yeah, Nikolai Ehlers, we've talked about him for a while. He's got 1 year remaining on his contract. Are the Jets going to try to sign him to stick around? And if you're not, do you trade him now for some value, or do you hang on to him? And then I think you have an even tougher decision to make as you get to the trade deadline. And if you're in contention, like, what, you're going to let him walk for nothing? Traditionally, they haven't done that, and they have managed to find ways to re-sign all their players, like we saw last year. I mean, we had this discussion, Scheifele, Hellebuyck, they're gone. Their report is they're not signing, and then, they're both here for seven years, or was it 8? I forget what it was. Either way,
7.
It was 7.
But contracts extension
Right.
that kick in right now. And, while we're talking about those extensions, there was, or I'm not sure if it has officially been signed yet, but it's reported by Chris Johnson, UC Saros getting an 8-year extension with the Nashville Predators at a number just south of $8 million. And I was listening to Elliot Friedman today. He said if that is the case, it's very clear that UC Saros wanted to play in one place and one place only, and that is Nashville. He'll be on a similar term to Connor Hellebuyck. Helly was 7 years at 8.5. He'll be on 8 years at, and notice that, 7.74, jersey number 74.
Oh.
I know you're big on jersey numbers and contracts that reflect the jersey number in the amount of money the players are getting.
Hold on, Murat's just calling me 1 sec.
Okay. All right, we're going to, we'll get Murat. You can mute your mic. That'd be a good idea when taking a phone call. Let me hit a couple other things right now, just before we, Brandon. We're going to bring in Murat in just a little bit. We do have a big Blue Bomber game on the weekend, and man, those Edmonton Elks, they are finding ways to lose games. Playing very well yesterday, in it for the entire time, and then hearts broken in the final minute of the game. They lose by 3. Cover the spread as always. They're covering machines. But they are at 0-4 right now. The Bombers do not want to join them at 0-4. The Bombers have a very, very tough spot going in to play Calgary. And maybe not necessarily a tough spot with where the Stamps are as an organization right now. But I'll tell you what, this lineup that the Bombers are rolling out tells you all you need to know about just how badly this team is devastated by injuries. And here's the other thing. With the potential of Dalton Schoen, as Dave Naylor reported yesterday, potentially out for the season. Kenny Lawler on the 6th game. This is dire straits, and that was supposed to be the strength of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers this year. Doesn't look like that is going to be the case if Schoen is out right now. And yeah. I'll be good. Yeah. What do you need 2 for? Sorry about this, folks. This was
It's a big hotel. You can't find the elevator.
Yeah, all right. So Remo's going down. We're going to get Murat. We'll get into this. There we go. The perils of a live show. Apologies to everyone. I'm sure you're all having a big laugh in the chat right now. Anyways, back to the Bombers while we get Murat. The starting receiving core. Listen, the slots are fine. You're going to have Nick Dembski and Drew Olatarski, and they're going to be getting a ton of action, I would imagine, but also a ton of attention from that Stamps defense. Brady Oliveira back at the top of the depth chart. And listen to me, this game needs a big-time performance from the Bomber offensive line and a big-time performance from Brady Oliveira because, with the likes of, you're starting with Murphy and Wilson at the wings and Clemens Claricius as your wideouts. There's nobody proven with any real legitimate experience right now. And listen, we saw Wheatfall have some big plays early on. Oh, yeah, he's on the 6th game as well. So listen, it's new opportunities for you guys to step up and go and do that. They're going to need to do that as well. I mean, the defensive line, we're looking at Fayad, Thomas, Adams, and Willie Jefferson up front. Radakramdi is in at middle line at linebacker. Adam Bighill in the middle. Kyrie Wilson on the left. And a real positive note, the return of Dietrich Nichols, who will definitely help Bonds and Ford, who are out in the corners, Alexander and Evan Holm. The Bombers do not want to go to 0-4. This has been a really, really tough start, both by the standings, obviously, and they've been in their last 2 games. They lost in very narrow margins. But Saturday, a big, big one for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, and they're going to need to find, I think, a lot more other than that high-octane passing offense from Zach Caleros and find other ways to win football games. As I mentioned, BC narrowly beating Edmonton last night with the 24-21 victory going forward. All right, Remo grabs Murat, and we'll get into Jets talk right off the bat. Ken Wiebe coming up a little later on. We'll also hear from Connor Hellebuyck. We were there at the scrum yesterday, and it was a lot of really interesting stuff. He's always such a neat guy to talk to, and I think he got peppered with about 22 questions or so. But certainly Ken and I being there from the local side of things, we're able to kind of focus a little bit more on this past season with the Winnipeg Jets. And Ken, also talked about, Arneal, Dylan DeMello. So we'll have some of that for you a little later on. But while we do that, if you have not already checked out CFL 110 this week, I suggest you do that before you get into the weekend. Every week, Jeff Hamilton and I will get together outside of Winnipeg Sports Talk, usually on Wednesdays, for a full rundown of the latest in the CFL. A great response so far. If you're listening on the podcast, pop in CFL 110 wherever you get your favorite pods and give a sub to that as well. And, of course, you can check it out on the YouTube version here on Winnipeg Sports Talk. But CFL 110 is brought to you by our friends at Garage Living Winnipeg. If you're dealing with major mess and clutter in the garage and not getting the most of what should be an incredibly productive and important space of your property, Garage Living is here to help you. In just a few days, you can have a beautiful, clean, functional garage that looks amazing and adds value to your home. They specialize in stunning polyaspartic floor coatings, high-end, made in Canada metal cabinets, slat wall and overhead storage solutions. Many WSTers know Pat Canoe, a great friend of ours, 20 years or so on CBC doing the morning show. And, he left the business to get into this because it is just such a passion of his. Pat has been a vintage car guy for decades. He knows garages as well as anyone. And whether it's a 10-car garage mahal or a single-car garage in the back lane, he can come up with a design to meet your needs. Give Pat a call, 204-999-1234. He can take you through options and what is possible and would love to pop in for a free in-garage consultation and let you know what is possible and let you revolutionize your garage, not only for a workspace, maybe for a great spot to get together with the fellas on the block and do your thing in your spot again. Garage Living Winnipeg, 999-1234. If you have a move coming up this year, gang, get over to our friends at Rolly's Transfer, family owned and operated for over 60 years and the most trusted name when it comes to moving services in Manitoba. Rolly's has an extensive logistics business that takes them around the city and around the province on a daily basis, which means flexible rates, flexible routes, and great pricing as well for that move for you. So what you're going to do is go to Rollies.com. If you're planning a move, there's a request a quote feature up at the right side of it. Let them know when you're planning on moving, where you're moving, and what you need to move. They'll turn it around very quickly with a very, very competitive quote and take as much of the stress out of the move that they can and get you onto your next destination. Again, Rollies Transfer, big sponsor, big great support of WST. It's great to have them on board. Find out more and request a quote today at Rollies.com. There's a lot going on Consolidated Supply. I know everyone's got projects that are happening on the weekend. Well, listen, if you have irrigation needs, they've got you covered. Thinking about artificial turf on your property? Yep, they've got that as well. Golf carts, new, used, they're the club car dealer in Manitoba, and other great options for your property like hot tubs and amazing outdoor kitchens, leaders in small engine repair as well, and the full line of Crest Power Tools. Find out more today at their showroom, open to the public, 1395 Niagara Road East. And you can also check them out online with everything they've got going on at Consolidated Supply at cte.ca. And just before we bring in Murat, got to shout out Donnie and the gang at Manitoba Battery. These long weekends in the summer are what we live for, right? You might be hitting on a boat, a Sea-Doo, a camper, ATV. You need batteries for all those things. Do not have a power outage to take the fun out of summer. Get down to Manitoba Battery and get the best prices in town on any battery that you need. And hey, you can visit them on Logan Avenue. You can visit them at their new location on Dovercourt Drive. But I'll tell you what, you don't even need to leave your house. Go to manitobabattery.com, order online, get the best prices in town, and they'll deliver it to you for free anywhere inside the perimeter at no charge with any purchase over $60. It's just that easy. Manitoba Battery, 2 locations in Winnipeg. Order online at manitobabattery.com. All right, shout out to everybody in chat who is hanging out with me. It looks like Remis is back, and it looks like Murat is back as well. We got Murat's mic up and everything. Let's just make sure that happened. How are you?
How you doing? Oh my goodness, good to see you.
You too. You made it in. How was the travel to get here? Did you have any issues like we did on Tuesday?
No, but you know what? So Haley flew out. She was on a flight while you were flying west, I guess, sorting out your ins and outs. And she was saying there were like a lot of people in the airport being like, "Hey, I think I just saw Hustler and Remis. Like, I think I just saw them." And then she saw somebody with Winnipeg Sports Talk on their phone as well. So like that debacle that you guys had was making its way around the full airport. Everybody knows it.
Oh, that is hilarious. Well, it was quite an ordeal. And we're just pumped that we're actually going to be able to get home. I didn't even know this. part of living life in the toy department, I guess. I didn't even know that there was a big issue with WestJet and that they were apparently maybe going on strike today.
I didn't know that either.
Glad to know that it's been averted. So if you're on the direct flight on Sunday,
and I am,
it's happening. So
okay, we'll get home. We'll be all right. We'll survive the week.
So listen, let's get to it. I mean, this has been a really weird week. I was kind of expecting, always a fun, but maybe a little bit less of a, we know how crazy Nashville was last year with the Dubois trade and everything like that. And then obviously there was the possibility of Nikolai Ehlers being gone, but the Rutger McGroarty news coming out of the weekend, I think, really sort of changed the tone around this week for the Winnipeg Jets, and that's certainly our conversations about it. I mean, let's get back to kind of Saturday, I guess, when that broke from Elliot Friedman. What was your reaction when you first heard it? And I know you've been doing a lot of digging and writing about it in The Athletic. I mean, as to where we are right now as we get closer to round one.
Yeah, if I recall correctly, it was Saturday morning that came out on his 32 Thoughts podcast with Jeff Merrick that other teams had McGroarty's name in discussions. So you can sort of assume that came from other team sources. And I got that message while I was just like in bed, scrolling through the phone, being like, hey, this is going to be a nice, lazy Saturday. It was not. So because that's a shocking situation, right? That's a shocking development.
So 180 from at least the way everyone, myself included, thought that this was progressing, even though I will admit, and Ken Robertson said it well when he joined us earlier on the show this week, his spidey senses started tingling a little bit when everybody else left Michigan and all of a sudden Rutger was going back for another season.
Yeah, I think that's fair spidey sense. That's good on his part. I was one of the people who, like many, wrote that, hey, you know what? This isn't a situation to really panic over. This is a few months ago already, right? He's going back to Michigan. It's a good developmental situation for him, all of that sort of stuff. The relationship was good. The Jets supported that development. The Jets support that development as well. I mean, McGroarty has some areas to develop his game. And to go from there to where we are, yeah, I'd say that, I checked in with somebody a couple of days ago and I said, look, we've seen lots of untenable situations in the NHL become tenable. We've seen players be on their way out and then sign. Hellebuyck and Scheifele, right? Last year as well. We all approached the draft thinking they were going to be moved. Then Chevy told us, we were sitting beside each other at that presser, like, hey, wait a second, let's ease up. They would be big holes in our roster. So we know things change. I was told, no, they're not changing. That this is going to happen. There's legs to it. It's very real. So now we sort of wait. I would have thought, if you asked me a few days ago, that it would be done by yesterday. I would have expected, just like Dubois, just like Trouba in 2019, is it, that it would have been done kind of in advance of day one.
I'm going to play the conspiracy theorist here. And I mean, listen, we all know, especially this sort of week, maybe more than any week of the entire year, things come out through different avenues, and there's a method to the madness. I mean, whether it's agents that are throwing things out there, whether it is general managers quietly feeding a little bit of information to other people. The one thing I'll say, we know how patient Kevin Cheveldayoff can be. They were under the assumption, based on what happened before, now maybe things were different behind the scenes, that Rutger McGroarty was going to go back for another year, and they said, oh, we're very happy with that. He'll be able to develop there. No problem. I don't feel that the Jets have a gun to their head to make this thing happen right now. For Kevin Cheveldayoff, and we've seen before, he takes a situation, he will wait it out to get the best deal for his team. Is there a possibility that the Jets have sort of said and maybe made it clear that this is probably happening very soon to maybe light a fire under the many teams that are interested in Rutger McGroarty to up offers, or to maybe to get serious, to get closer to where Kevin Cheveldayoff is comfortable to actually make the deal? Because as we know, a lot of these things really do come out publicly and get everyone talking. Wait a second, did you know that? No, maybe we have to revisit what we're willing to give up for this guy, because if not, our rival, someone else that we don't want to get him, may get their hands on a player that they feel highly about.
Yeah, and that's, good strategy. I think if you're a GM, you want as many people to be involved in the possibility of a conversation as possible. Like, consider Jake Wallman, who San Jose was willing to give a pick to acquire, they were preparing to claim him on waivers or what have you, but then they get assets for him. Do I have this straight? But the idea was that Wallman wasn't thoroughly shopped around the NHL, right? I think that in a situation like Rutger McGroarty, everybody now knows, talk to Winnipeg about this player. I think almost every team should have some amount of interest in him. He's a quality player. He's a quality leader, all those sorts of things. And Cheveldayoff has proven exactly what you said. There is no gun to his head on this situation. There is no ticking clock if you're the Winnipeg Jets, because Rutger McGroarty's value is this. He's a leader who finished 7th in NCAA scoring. He captained Team USA to a World Junior gold medal. And he has consolidated a draft pick at 14th overall that I think was maybe seen by some other teams as a bit of a reach at that time, right? Like 14 was aggressive for what he had done to that point, but the Winnipeg Jets loved that player and they went for that. And now what I'm hearing in terms of price, what can you get Rutger McGroarty for? That's the interesting one, right? I have heard everything from, listen, teams know he wants out. Teams know that this is a problem situation. So, you're not actually going to get a 14th overall type pick for him. It's going to be late in the first round. It's going to be a prospect you're not that excited about. And I think, okay, sure, teams can maybe make that case to the Winnipeg Jets. But McGroarty has developed since being taken at 14th overall. He's got 2 years of that under him already. He's tracking well. And I think that he's a highly regarded person and prospect despite the situation. So if I'm the Winnipeg Jets and I'm not hearing the offers that I would really like, I think that your point saying like, hey, what about the trade deadline? If he goes back to Michigan, which is what his intended position was before all of this, then he's just going to keep developing. And why not think about it at the trade deadline or after?
Well, and the funny thing about this, and again, like I know there are some people, and certainly we've heard about it in chat, and others that will say, well, this is them using their leverage. They'll wait it out for 2 years. This seems to be about him wanting to play in the NHL right now. So be careful with what you wish for with looking for a spot. Okay, 2 years is a long time. Enjoy 2 more years away from the National Hockey League developing, and it would never get to that point because the Winnipeg Jets would find someone. Now, if you played it out that long, which I'm not suggesting they will, there's no way, maybe that asset is diminished a little bit and you have your hands tied somewhat because there is the possibility of free agency and choosing where you go. But 2 years for a player that seemingly wants to be in the NHL right now is a really, really long time, Murat. And I think that actually plays into the Winnipeg Jets' hands when it comes to making the best deal for this prospect. And I kind of think a lot of what we've heard about, it will happen this week. It will be a draft day trade. I think a lot of it is trying to raise the offers and make sure that there actually is something happening for the Winnipeg Jets that makes sense for them to do it, to move on from a player that the fan base was in love with and was thought to be a guy that looking down the road would be a franchise cornerstone.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. Like I'll put it this way. I am happy to entertain the theory that Cheveldayoff, one of the unfortunate truths of the Cheveldayoff era in Winnipeg is he's developed and proven the ability to deal when backed into a corner, or he's sort of against the wall in terms of an asset wanting out or what have you. He's demonstrated multiple times. He's a patient GM. He gets what he wants as a general rule, and the Dubois trade would be a great example of that. And I also agree with you. There's the angle of this, like to a 20-year-old in Rutger McGroarty's shoes that is seeing all kinds of his teammates this year and last year not only sign in the NHL, but play in the NHL. 2 years probably seems like an awful long time. I don't think that that's Cheveldayoff's game, to wait that long in terms of making this work. I think that ideally for him, for Cheveldayoff, for Winnipeg, you'd like to see something sooner than later, but there is no deadline on this draft. As much as I believe teams have been calling on him, and as much as I believe that the Sharks are interested, that Columbus is interested, as much as I believe those things, there's no deadline.
You know, and one other thing I'll say right now, I think it is more likely. Like if people are worried about this dragging out for 2 years and Rucker McGroarty going and the Jets getting nothing and him re-entering or basically becoming a free agent, it's more likely that the Jets wait him out and sign him and he ends up in Winnipeg than going to that. I would say
so?
Absolutely. I mean, if this is about playing in the NHL, and if what we're led to believe that has been reported, that the crux of this was not having a spot waiting for him right now, I would say that in a year from now, he's far more likely to walk right into the National Hockey League. They'd probably be in a much different situation roster-wise to be able to say, and he'll probably be more ready in their minds to do it. Like if you just fast-forwarded to a year from right now, and he'd have to miss out on another year of the NHL or sign in Winnipeg and start his career, I think that's more likely unless things have gotten so ugly behind the scenes. And, I mean, as much as we're hearing that right now, I mean, the way the Winnipeg Jets deal with people right now, I think is very well respected. I would be surprised at that. Bottom line is, the most likely path is neither of those. And it's,
Sure,
and
yep.
it's something in between the next half hour and at some point this season. But as it pertains to tonight, I am intrigued as to whether something potentially happens, because I'm not necessarily thinking that the Winnipeg Jets are, really looking for a particular pick in the draft to get back in and start that development clock again. But I do think that the McGroarty trade, whether it's young players coming in that have already been picked that are maybe more along the lines of him from 2 years from being drafted, makes sense. But I think it's going to be young players. It'll be team control. Like, I don't think they're going to be trading Rucker McGroarty for a established NHL player that has 1 or 2 years left on the deal to make a big push this season.
No, I don't see that happening. And, I do want to say, I think in terms of what everybody's reasons for getting to this moment is, like, I suspect that there's more onion to peel back on this than has been reported so far. I think that it's going to be really interesting to hear from both parties when everything is sort of said and done. At the same time, when you talk about what Winnipeg would want back, if I'm the Winnipeg Jets and Rucker McGroarty has developed well for 2 straight years, I want someone who has also developed well for 2 straight years. If I can get that, I don't want a pending UFA. I don't want Jacob Chikrin, who's a UFA next year, and who knows what the certainty is on a player like that. I want a player like, and I don't think Columbus is in a hurry. I don't think Columbus would give this player up necessarily. But wouldn't a Winnipeg fantasy be Denton Matejchuk, taken 12th overall, 2 picks before Rucker, had 2 successive years of continued growth, Manitoba product, right? Dominion City. There's a lot to like there.
Defenseman of the league in the dub last year, if I'm not mistaken.
Enormous role on a great team. Like, this is a player who would tie a little bow in terms of the story just so brilliantly. And the thing that I like about him, even beyond all of those things as a template of what Winnipeg should want, is, to your point, he's developed for 2 years. He is closer to making an impact on the next stage of his career. Because if I'm, again, like you, Winnipeg, you're going to ask for the 14th overall pick or something like that in this draft and then reset that clock. It's like, that's fine value, I suppose. But there's a lot of 14th, like, if you draw the bell curve of 14th overall picks, most of them progress, some of them don't, and we know that McGroarty has progressed. To me, he's worth more as opposed to less than the pick itself.
100%. I mean, over the course of the last 24 months, he has become more the player that the Jets hoped they were drafting when they did. And I think if you ask these guys if they drafted players at 20 as opposed to 18, you're getting a very, very different run of the picks than you do. And that's part of the inexact science of an 18-year-old draft, which makes it far more risky to do it for picks as opposed to a guy that you think is there or very close to coming to fruition of being exactly what you've had. So, I mean, that part of it will be very interesting to follow. I don't rule out the Jets, though, getting into the first round, and that potentially brings us to Nikolai Ehlers. And I think it was Elliot this morning, if I'm not mistaken. God, we've talked to so many different people, is having a hard time keeping it all straight. But the report from Friedge and Merrick on 32 was that interested players for Nikolai Ehlers would like to be able to talk to his representation and about a contract extension before making the deal and paying the price that Winnipeg wants, which is a young NHL player and a first-round pick. And to me, that would be an intriguing and I think probably a pretty good haul for a player with 1 year left on his deal. Although, as we all know, look at the Pierre-Luc Dubois trade last year. Trading for a player in a sign and trade or an agreement working it through certainly adds to the return for a team. And the Winnipeg Jets right now, if they're going to move off a player as important to their club for so long as Nikolai Ehlers, we're going to want to maximize that value. And the Islanders, an interesting team that has been talked about quite a bit. And I don't know, knowing the way that team is run, the way that they play, it's not really a fit that I think of right off the top of the head. And if I'm Nikolai Ehlers, I guess if the bag is there and I want to secure my future, I mean, maybe I consider that. But what are you hearing about Nikolai, and like where are you at on the many possibilities that this could go, which includes not going anywhere and starting the season with the new head coach and potentially a bigger role that might entice him to think more about sticking around after this season?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of what do I know, I can't say I absolutely know anything because there are so many possibilities available. I was told at one point, somebody told me that look for Ehlers to be moved for futures ahead of the draft when a pick wants to get into the first round, just like you said. And the price that you've cited from Friedman is so sensible on a situation where the player is extended, because we go back to 2019, the Jacob Trouba situation. Winnipeg was able to get Neil Pionk and a first-round pick that became Ville Heinola at that time. And I think that's the template if Ehlers is signed. A young player who Winnipeg believed in Neil Pionk quite a bit, right? So there's some talk about what his future is, how good he became, some highs and lows to his play. But as a template for a trade, a good young player with promise, they thought he'd step into a top 4 role and keep it, as well as a first-round pick, I think is the ask, or should be within the range of an ask for Nikolai Ehlers, and that makes sense. I think signed, he should be able to garner that. I really do. At the same time, I'm having some people tell me, well, wingers don't have a lot of value, and if they're not Mark Stone defense level players or what have you, it's not necessarily as enticing out there. There's also, like you said, the fact that Winnipeg has had success walking into a season with players like this. And we've talked about Andrew Kopp before. So all of these things are possible. Without the McGroarty situation, I would have thought Ehlers is like front burner, like 5-alarm fire, like this is probably happening before the draft. I suspect Cheveldayoff is still working those phones. He's clearly taking those calls on this player. And if there is an extension, the value goes up. And I think that sort of non-star but quality young player and first-round pick should be a sensible ask.
What do you expect to hear from Chevy today? And the reason I ask that is that, for a long time, very guarded, basically treating everyone on a need-to-know basis, if you will, and I'll let you know, and you need to know. But in the past, certainly last year, I remember his media availability after the Dubois trade. And maybe it was just that they were feeling so good about making chicken salad out of chicken bleep, if you will, and what they got in the return was that he was quite open. And to be honest, since then, over the course of last year, I think we've had a more open Kevin Cheveldayoff that's actually given, some more legitimate feedback and information to the media and to the fans on this. Because of the way everything's went with McGroarty, the Ehlers situation, I'm kind of expecting a return to the former. And not as much, unless something big has already happened and, then they can kind of roll out how they got to this point.
I just think of the post-Dubois availability last year as the beginning of Spidey sense goes off, and we think maybe something's changed with Hellebuyck and Scheifele. And the fact that he was open with them and those conversations kept going, the idea that they were, especially Hellebuyck, right? Because there was a report, and I think it was a valid one, as wrong as it's looked in hindsight, that like he was not likely to come back.
The ship has sailed, I believe the quote was.
Yeah, I guess I'm being gentle about it, but like as I understand it, that was valid until it wasn't, you know what I mean? As opposed to just smoke. And that signifies a change. And then that media availability that we were at last year in Nashville also conveyed a change. This is maybe a strange analogy, but you ever look at a baby photo of somebody who you know well or a kid photo and you're like, oh yeah, 100%, I can see my friend in that childhood picture or in that baby picture. But if you held the baby, you would never know what they were going to look like as an adult.
Yes.
Right? So for me, Cheveldayoff has been a little bit like that, where he says things that look back on them after the events transpire. You go back and, that makes sense given what was happening and what we later found out about the situation. But it's not like in the moment it gives away his intentions completely. I hope that makes sense. Commenters, let me know if we got that wrong. But I think that there is usually some amount of truth to what he says. And if he's being deliberately circular or obsequious, like then he's doing that on purpose as well. I think there's some clarity to him.
Hey, Murat, give me 1 sec. Reem, just because of this is a little bit of a different setup, I haven't been able to see the chat quite a bit, but I do see that there's been some really, really generous super chats from the WST crew that we do want to give a quick thank you to.
Yeah, shout out to DHG becoming a member. Coachy51 says, here's to an exciting day for the Jets. Let's go.
Thanks, Coachy.
TWPG gifting a membership. Derek Schmidt with 5 gifted memberships, and Sam Crow as well with a very generous
Sam Crow,
super
our
chat.
guy. Great to meet you at the ball game. Good luck to your Italians in the Euro. We were just talking about that in the lock shop. I'll be riding with you, Sam Crow, for Italy in their game. Thanks again to everyone, and shout out to everyone in the chat. It seems to be quite popping right now. Hey, listen, this is something that we've kicked around. There's been a few people talking about it. I won't ask you for any info on it, but just a thought on a Patrick Laine reunion with the Winnipeg Jets. How, when the first thing happened with him going into, the player assistance program, we spoke about it. I mean, it's like having, an old friend or someone that's going through a tough time. And we saw it from the fans and whatnot. I mean, the people still really care about the guy. And we all remember the heights of his, work in the National Hockey League. And I remember when it came out that Columbus and the Laine people were looking for, a change of scenery, I believe it was put out. I remember saying on the show, as I said, I'm sure this is completely pie in the sky, would never happen. But I could make an argument that the best place for that would be Winnipeg, a place that he knows, a place that he liked, a team that he really did succeed with. And I think that based on everything that he has been through, and obviously the change, Blake Wheeler being gone, a new captain, a new head coach and all that, you can make an argument that I think it makes the most sense for this. Just big picture, what if that would happen? And I mean, there's a lot going on. He makes a lot of money. How that we would get to that point, fill in the blanks. But if that would happen, how exciting do you think that would be for the organization, the city? We've certainly been hearing it from the fans for the last 24 hours since we had that conversation. It's a fun one, and I haven't seen anything that's lit a fire and had this sort of feedback in a long, long time outside of the news that Pierre-Luc Dubois was traded, and then because that was a 2-year story that went on for a long time. I mean, just Laine, and I don't know if you've heard anything about Laine and just where he's at right now, still technically in the program, but looking to jumpstart a career that kind of fell off a cliff in Columbus, but no one more than us in Winnipeg that saw him from day one in the NHL knows what he can do at the height of his powers.
Yeah, I mean, it's impossible, I think, to spend any amount of time around Patrick Laine and not come away pulling for the guy. Right? Like, he was such a beloved character in Winnipeg. His sense of humor great. Like his general vibe was like a guy that was good to be around. It added such a dynamic to that room at a time when, Dustin Byfuglien was also around and the Jets were on the way up. So there's a lot of nostalgia available to a Jets fan right now, pointing back to sort of that situation. I've definitely been told that Patrik Laine loved Winnipeg, and had he felt more maybe welcome there, or more this or more that, and I don't know the ins. Patrik Laine wasn't the one who told me this. He would have signed. Like, he would have been happy to be a longtime Winnipeg Jet, and that comes from somebody close to the team. So it's a thing that I've thought of. You can immediately picture power play success because we saw it in Winnipeg.
Oh, I imagine Davis Payne pounding his fist like, "Hey guys, you want to know how we can turn this power play around?
Yeah, he looked like
Talk
the most
to Don Waddell right now."
the most brilliant power play coach ever, right? Comes in, Winnipeg's power play skyrockets, and it's just this one guy firing bombs. And I assume he can still do that. His points per game in Columbus was pretty impressive, I think, once he got his health sort of sorted out and things like that. Clearly, it wasn't an ideal situation. His overall impact on the game, he wasn't dominating them by any stretch. The thing I remember as well about it is that I think it was the 2-year anniversary of his father's passing. He was a healthy scratch on that day, which for me, when I saw that, it's like if that wasn't done with his consent or desire because he was feeling away, if that was just a thing on that anniversary, that would have been a gut punch for me. That would have been hard, and I don't know that he feels that way, but that is a thing I clocked, and I thought that if this is not with his consent, then that's a huge misstep, and it might be I have no idea what led to his discontent there. The most fun is imagining him reunited with Nikolai Ehlers, I think, right? That's a buddy comedy that Winnipeg misses. And then you can begin to imagine, hey, if they're so happy together, scoring all these goals, running that second line, none of them has to play with Mark Scheifele. And, what does that mean Ehlers is going to extend and all that sort of stuff? And I think it's a lot of fun conversation to have. It would be a beautiful storyline. I'm not hearing that it's imminent. There's plenty in the world that I don't know. I'm more fascinated by it as something to talk about anyway.
Well, for sure. I mean, like, the redemption story would be unbelievable. And to be honest, I think from a player standpoint, I think it's the one place where he could go, he could show up next year. Everybody knows him. Everyone knows what he's capable of, what he's done in the past. And, like, in some ways, you could almost erase the last 3 years, which has been a real tough time for him personally, and get him back to doing what he does. And, listen, yesterday, the text and the comments and stuff have been flying in. We know the way the majority of this fan base feels about this guy. It would be a huge win for the organization if something like that happened. And for anyone that's on the other side, I will just remind you, go back and watch the season opener against Calgary in his final game as a Winnipeg Jet. I still can't believe that was how he left. The next thing that happened was he was traded. And I will say the same thing about the 2019 playoffs. You look at the guys that stepped up, that showed up, that were there. 3 guys that stand out to me of the entire team: Patrik Laine, Dustin Byfuglien, and Brian Little. And we know what happened to Brian Little. We obviously know what happened to Dustin Byfuglien. And then Laine left as much of a trade. And listen, Winnipeg has seen the best of him, and I will make the case that this would be the best place to get back to it. And obviously, you're talking about a way different price for a player right now, and figuring out a way to make a deal at work that might also include getting some money off the books in the form of potentially an H. Schmidt. Are you hearing anything about buyouts? Do you expect that to happen? We haven't seen. Only Cam Atkinson, I believe, so far today has been put on waivers for the purposes of that right now. If you had to guess right now as to how this moves forward, outside of our conversations about bringing in a player at $8.7 a year for 2 more seasons, does anything change with the Jet Blue Line as far as those 2 contracts right now over the next few days?
Yeah, it's another situation where there's so many possibilities that are all valid. I think many people were expecting or maybe hoping that the Jets would gain cap space and clarity with a buyout. Kevin Cheveldayoff said that it wasn't off the table either when I asked him about it at exit interviews. I think that there are enough moving parts to this, though, where we don't yet know what an Ehlers trade return is if it happens. We don't know yet what a Rutger McGroarty trade return is if it happens, and we assume that those things will come down. So we don't have clarity on Winnipeg's cap position. I think the best situation, if you're purely thinking about Winnipeg's cap efficiency heading into next season, is Winnipeg handles its business non-buyout related right now. Somebody files for arbitration. I'm not saying that's a guarantee. And then a second buyout window opens where they've got maybe a little bit more clarity on their cap position. Is that how it happens? No, nobody's told me that that's the way it's going to go. I did have some foresight to the Blake Wheeler buyout when it happened. I don't have foresight here. Nobody, I reached out just to ask. I reached out to Nate Schmidt's camp just to ask if the Jets told you one way or the other.
Well, it's a very different situation too. I mean, listen, the Blake Wheeler buyout, people saw coming because of how this team needed to make some major changes when it came to the culture of the club. They tried to do it by taking the C off of him. We saw the way that season ended in Vegas, and it was very clear that they needed to rip the Band-Aid off, and they did that. It was way more than just a money thing. In fact, it wasn't really a money thing. There was a cost to doing what they wanted to do. I think they'd be more than happy to have both of those players around the team and in the locker room playing maybe in a diminished role or not as often as they had before. But it would be both space on the roster and also cap space going forward.
For sure. And I think because of that, it's moves that you make if you feel like you have to facilitate something else. Like, remember that despite the fact that, you'll hear it from the fans, they're overpaid, they're bringing a net positive value, and particularly Nate Schmidt in that third pairing role, which is a different role than a top four. I've said this many times. I believe it very firmly. You can shelter a third pairing in a way that you just can't the top four. So Nate Schmidt's underlying numbers look great. His offensive impact at times has been really good. This isn't a player that's killing you to play in that third pairing role. So you don't have to get rid of this guy. As a matter of fact, if he were making $1 million, $2 million, a lesser cap hit than his 5.9, whatever it is, I think a lot of fans would be celebrating his contributions, right? So this isn't a situation where you have to get rid of the player to become a better team. That's not how that would go necessarily, depending on what happens outside of it. It's a situation where you see a route to a cap safety valve, and that's it. And so it could come from him. I don't expect it to come from Neil Pionk, but I don't know that. And then I've also heard Alex Iafalo's $4.0 million talked about as a possible cap safety valve. So theoretically, if I'm Winnipeg, I see all of these options and I make the moves that I want to make to help the club. And if that involves Ehlers, if that makes whatever their plans are, and then I sort of clean up the cap after, if at all possible.
It's fascinating, and we're just getting into it. I mean, there's going to be a lot of things that'll happen over the course of the next 48 hours. And then Monday, and, big free agency day. I'm not sure how active the Winnipeg Jets will be, but a lot of the needs, holes in the roster could change based on what happens. Murat, I'm looking forward to seeing you in a couple hours down the street at the Sphere. This should be really cool tonight. I mean, just as far as the spectacle of this event at that facility that we've been staring at for the last couple days. I mean, it is like one of the wonders of the world. This is going to be whatever happens with the Winnipeg Jets, and I know that's what we're going to be focusing on. I think it's going to be a very, very memorable night for the draftees, and I think everyone taking part in it.
I think I'm just happy to be here for that. Honestly, the Sphere is an intriguing place to me. I want to see it. I want to see what it's like. I want to see if there's like what's the Star Wars joke? Like, it looks like the Death Star to me, so I'm wondering if there's like an exposed ventilator shaft somewhere that like, okay. But I honestly think almost bucket list wise, it's a pretty unique space, and I do want to experience that, and I want to experience everything that sort of happens there tonight. This has been a pretty interesting ride already, and hanging out with you at the draft last year and this year, what have you, it's a great time to be here, especially when the team you cover is kind of doing all sorts of intriguing stuff.
Pretty interesting stuff. Again, check out theathletic.com for all of Murat's work covering the Winnipeg Jets and the draft. Thanks so much for doing this, and we'll look forward to seeing you in a couple hours down at the Sphere.
Yes, sir.
Good stuff. There is Murat Atesh. Mute that mic, Reem. We're going to get Kenny Wiebe here in just a minute. Thanks again, Murat. Great to see you, and great to have Murat in person as well. We weren't able to make can happen in person, but we do have Ken coming up in just a minute. Got to give a shout out to our friends at Princess Auto. Don't forget, gang, road game, so no Princess Auto Stadium for the Bombers this week, but Monday is Canada Day. The big Canada Day celebrations get going on at noon, entirely free. Bring out the whole family of food trucks, inflatables, activities all day long. Fireworks at dusk. I know tickets are sold out. They were free, but they're all gone for the grandstand, the main stage for the concerts. But still, it's going to be a great celebration, completely free. Fireworks at dusk. Make a point to check out Princess Auto Stadium for Canada Day, presented by Princess Auto and the Bombers. And, of course, you can get down to Princess Auto for the best and most unique assortment of tools and equipment around, and the best deals as well. Panet Road, Portage Avenue West. You can shop online at Princess Auto 24/7, 365. Hey, the long weekend is here. Make sure you're stocked up on everything that you need, including Canada's favorite Canadian whiskey, Canadian Club, of course, the official spirit of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. We'll cross our fingers that we'll be toasting a little CC tomorrow night after the first Bomber win of the season. We'll see what happens with that one. One thing I can tell you is that you'll be able to enjoy Canadian Club at the Canada Day festivities at Princess Auto Stadium on Monday. And in the meantime, make your weekend complete with Canada's favorite and oldest Canadian whiskey since 1848, Canadian Club, available at your local Manitoba liquor marts. You know what's better than building a fence on a long weekend? Having the experts at Wallace & Wallace do it for you and making the most of your time outside of work. Listen, folks, if you're thinking about a fencing project, over and overhead door, think about Wallace & Wallace, the leader since 1946. Vinyl, ornamental, welded wire, chain link, wood fences for you. And, of course, the largest selection of overhead doors in the city as well. Whatever your needs are, give them a call, 452-2700. The Wallace & Wallace experts will arrange to come down and give you a free estimate. And there's a reason why they've been the leaders in the business for over 7 decades, taking care of Manitobans with both fences and overhead doors. More information online, wallacefences.com. And you can also check them out in person at their showroom on Lawson Crescent, just off of Kenniston. And, hey, we're going to be seeing some great suits tonight at the draft. If you need to up your menswear game, fellas, get on down to F Apparel. Custom suits beginning at $400. Chinos, golf pants, custom shirts, both tucked and untucked styles. An amazing selection of menswear accessories. And, of course, they've also got a great deal for wedding parties. If you're standing up for one of your boys, if you're having a wedding, make sure to talk to the fellas at F about a 15% discount when the wedding party gets their suits at F Apparel. 190 Smith Street downtown. Find out more online or make an appointment for a fitting at F. That's EPHapparel.com. All right. We have finally connected with Ken, and not a moment too soon. Ken Wiebe of the Winnipeg Free Press joins us now. What is your whereabouts right now? We thought we were going to see you. Have you been all over the city today? What is the latest on your beat?
Yeah, good afternoon, Andrew. Had to change hotels here for the last 2 nights. First 2 on points, and as you know, the prices this week with the UFC and the
Power slap tonight.
The football and whatever else is happening in town here. Had to change to the Spring Hill Suites, and as you've also seen us with the traffic we've been dealing with in Vegas, what should be a 5-minute ride is often taking half an hour. So I apologize, I was not able to counter what Murat had done in terms of being sitting beside you, but I was sitting near you yesterday, and we'll be sitting near you again in a couple hours.
Yes, indeed.
So,
Did you get your creds yet?
Apologies.
Did you get your creds yet?
No, that was one of the things I was planning on doing before the ride took half an hour. So I'm going to be getting them after we're done here and on my way to the Sphere. So
excellent. Now, do you get them here?
Yes.
Okay,
I do.
perfect.
Yes,
well, we'll meet you there,
yes.
and we can head over. Should be quite fun. Remis is all fired up to see the new Fanatics jerseys coming up right after the show.
Jersey head.
Yeah,
Reno,
absolutely,
yes.
absolutely. I'm just excited to get to the Sphere, and I'm excited to see what happens with the Winnipeg Jets. Ken, listen, you and Mike had a great piece that we read as soon as we touched down, I think in Vancouver, maybe it was here, on just this week. This is the first time we've had you on the program let's get your perspective on. I mean, I guess we can start with Saturday and the Rucker McGroarty news, but everything that you've been talking about, as well as in that piece with Mike on, how this has affected the Winnipeg Jets going into the draft, and what you're maybe keen to find out tonight from Winnipeg and the results of tonight and any potential movement.
Yeah, Huss, I mean, it's been an interesting several days, obviously, starting with the Rutger McGroarty news. And hey, I mean, we were laughing at certain times about the receipts, Huss. And as you know, I was very bullish on McGroarty coming out as soon as the season was over. But my prediction of 90% as an NHLer by next season, well, we'll see about that. I guess it might not be looking as foolish as it was a couple months ago. But yeah, I mean, I thought there weren't any issues. That was my understanding. I mean, you talked about it with Mike, and Mike had a better understanding than me because he was at the Frozen Four and talking with so many people around his camp, including himself. So when a player says there aren't any issues with the team, you don't expect there have been any or will be any, but things can change. And to a degree, I think that Rucker, found himself with a little bit of FOMO. I mean, the idea of going back to Michigan is a sound one on a number of levels for a guy who is still 20 years old. But, when your two buddies and your line mates decide to turn pro and they get to play right away and they're looking to be NHLers again this year, now all of a sudden you're thinking, as great a program as Michigan is, maybe it's not going to be as fun if you're not going to be as loaded as you were when you went to the Frozen Four 2 years in a row. So, I mean, the thing about the AHL versus, this is very simple for me, Huss. I mean, and I understand that maybe a 20-year-old wouldn't see it this way, but Huss, as someone who's 49 years old and covered the game since 2000, this is very simple. If you don't want to go to the minors, give them no choice but to put you in the NHL.
Make the team.
Go to Huss. We know there are openings on the roster. If you want to be on the team, get on the team. I mean, I understand it's not always as simple as that, but when you are a top prospect with the type of game the Jets would be looking for, that option is available to you. So again, and I don't want to slag the player or the person. My dealings with Rutger McGroarty, much like yours, Huss,
amazing.
They're limited, but this is a very charismatic individual. He's a quote machine. His skill set translates to something the Jets haven't had in abundance in their roster. There are parts of his game that obviously need improvement, and the debate over whether he's ready or not, or I mean that will rage on until training camp or until there's resolution to this situation. If he decides to turn pro versus going back to Michigan, we'll see. We'll see if something gets taken care of today, or we'll see if Rutger McGroarty, has to go back to school, and maybe he's a trade deadline acquisition instead of a draft day pickup. But I still do think there's enough teams interested that there will be an offer that is enticing enough to the Winnipeg Jets that comes in today. Now, the other part, Huss, is that for a draft pick, certainly, or is that to help the Jets get better in the here and now, and also maybe help in the sweet spot where maybe you get someone that can help you now and later. So that's the biggest thing for me that we're going to be left to see. And, as we've been hearing and as Mike reported, the Boston Bruins kind of maybe a late emerger in the sweepstakes here. Now, what is their offer going to entail? Is it something like Brandon Carlo to maybe be a potential Brandon Dillon replacement, but play on the right side? I could see that being of appeal, but I don't think Mason Lohrei is a possibility. That team is too close to the cap ceiling and has too many needs down the middle in order for them to be moving a guy on an ELC. I just don't see that as being a likely possibility. But again, Jets are going to be making their asks. Other teams are going to be making their offers. And, once they get to a place where both sides are happy, there's going to be a deal made, or else that deal will be delayed.
Hey, let me ask you this. And I kind of brought this up with Murat.
Yeah.
I know that it has been reported, and you guys have said that it is likely, I believe I'll just use the term likely, that this deal happens ahead of the draft. Are you still feeling that way? And how much of that do you think was maybe to get the word out that if you want this guy to step up the offers and make it happen now? Because I really don't think that Kevin Cheveldayoff is under a lot of pressure to do this right now. They've got his rights for 2 more years. If this is all about him wanting to play in the NHL right now, it's a long time to sit out to become a free agent, and you'll have plenty of opportunities to do that before. What do you make of all of that as far as the likelihood, as of right now, a few hours away from the beginning of the first round, that this happens potentially tonight, during the draft, or is this a story that we'll be following more down the road into July?
Yeah, it could be either, Huss, and that's the thing. Like, and let's not make any mistakes here. The Jets we're not leaking anything regarding this story. That's coming from elsewhere. This isn't the Jets saying, by the way, would you like to have a shot at our top prospect? There's no way the Jets wanted to move Rutger McGroarty, Huss. So, so whatever has happened to create pressure points. I don't think Kevin Cheveldayoff is saying, hey, this deal needs to get done. Make your best offer now, or he's gone. No, I'm with you. He has shown the ability to be patient throughout his entire 13-year tenure, and I don't think that's changing for year 14. You're right, and you've talked about this during the course of the week when it's been suggested. And again, I still think it is more likely than not that he gets traded today, but there's no rush to make the deal in the afternoon, especially if it's for a draft pick, or maybe it's not even for a high draft pick, right? You got to see how the board evolves. And again, there's going to be other teams that once their guy is off the board, maybe they're more open to moving that pick that's in the top 10, or if it's in the 10 to 15 range, or wherever that pick is. So, and you're right, the 2 years, if Rutger's trying to, strong arm his way into being an NHLer, I'm sorry that you're not going to be given, the player's not going to be just given away. Oh, here, why don't you have our best prospect? And, thanks for coming. That's just,
it was
not
all
how
we
it
could get
works.
for him. We just did it.
No, that's not how it works, Huz. And again, we don't know the nature of the conversations between the two sides right now. And, once both those sides speak, we're not even sure we're going to know the full story once Rutger speaks and once the Jets speak, because not everything is always, laid out for us, right?
You don't say.
Yeah, exactly. So, and again, I don't see the Jets blowtorching the bridge of Rutger McGroarty, nor do I see Rutger McGroarty having his first act as a player who moves organizations saying, I can't believe how the Jets treated me here. It's just rare that it works that way. And this is not about the blame game or whatever else, even though we know that it's been happening in full blast. Sorry, Remo, I'm getting the echo here.
Oh, we'll get that.
Right on. Now it's gone. Thank you.
Okay, perfect.
So again, I'm not blaming Cutter Gauthier, but Hussey, we can't, we're following the breadcrumbs. Rutger McGroarty, one of his best friends, if not his best friend, is Cutter Gauthier, who used his leverage, or whatever leverage he created, to force his way out of a place with the team that picked him 5th overall.
Hey,
so,
just on that, Ken. What? I've been talking. What was the genesis of that? Do we know why things went so sour with? I mean, a team like Philly. I mean, it's a big money, big market team, an American kid. You think that would be an amazing place to go? I mean, do we know what the genesis of how things went so sideways in that situation?
Not exactly, and I think that we know because the fact that Danny Briere was able to keep it quieter than this Rutger McGroarty situation, that's maybe the only difference in the two sides here. But again, that's why I mentioned what I mentioned earlier. Yes, both sides have spoken, but I don't know that we have the full story there either. And again, it's maybe you will, maybe you won't, and either way, we always want to try to find the answer. But I mean, even we've been trying to take people at their word this whole time, and if that were still the case, then I don't think the Jets and Rutger McGroarty would find themselves in this situation. So, but the long-winded way of saying I'm with you. The Jets don't need to move him today. It's not a disaster if they don't. It's not, it's going to be a talking point still moving forward. But I mean, I had someone tell me in Vegas here this week that his value may be as high or higher at the trade deadline. Now, the counter to that is if he doesn't have if his progression doesn't stay upward, then maybe there's an argument that maybe you maybe not get as much later as you do now. But I would say it's much more likely that Rutger McGroarty has a better year than a worse year than last year, and his value is only going to be on the rise.
Ken Wiebe with us here on Winnipeg Sports Talk, live from Vegas. Ken, let's transition over to Nikolai Ehlers for a second. What are you hearing on Ehlers? And are your expectations that, what do you think the chances are that Ehlers is a Jet come Monday?
Yeah, Huss, I would say that my feelings on Ehlers haven't changed since the first time we started talking about this the day of the exit interviews. Now, is it more likely that he's moved today? Well, certainly, because it's one of the points on the schedule. The pressure points on the schedule are draft, they are the deadline, and they are when a guy is within the last year of his contract. But I still don't believe it's a certainty that he will be moved. Colleague Mike McIntyre just sent me a note that there's some cryptic tweet from someone around Buffalo that Ehlers and Iafallo are players of interest to the Sabres. Now I haven't seen it and I don't know the details, but something to maybe Remo do a little bit of searching while we talk here. I do think it's I don't know, better than 50-50 that Ehlers is moved just because of his contract situation. And the word is that doesn't sound like he's going to be sticking or interested in signing an extension, at least not right now. That could change if his role is enhanced, but I mean, we're going to have to see what happens. And I think if the Jets, let's just put it this way, the Jets' best chance to get into the top 10 would be moving Ehlers. And I don't necessarily think it's a package involving Ehlers and McGroarty, but I mean, that's obviously going to raise the value level as well.
Yeah, just look. Yeah, there is a little bit. I'll say this. I had not heard a lot of Alex Iafallo.
I would just put it this way, Huss. Just quick thing on Iafallo. I think that going to a place like Buffalo makes sense. And it would not be that the Jets don't value what Alex Iafallo brings, but a couple months ago, or weeks for sure, I mentioned this possibility too, Huss. I mean, Alex Iafallo, when he's playing in the middle six, is probably you can make the case he's easily worth $4 million, but he finished the year on the fourth line. A fourth line player at $4 million, where the Jets are at in terms of trying to enhance their back end and fill the second line center spot. If you can play Rasmus Kupari or David Gustafsson in that job that Alex Iafallo does for $3 million less, you have to consider doing that as a cap ceiling team. That also has to sign Cole Perfetti to potentially a bridge deal, I would think.
Yeah, and listen, the only reason I bring up Iafallo, we've seen how well Alex Tuch has worked coming back and really buying into being part of Western Michigan, being a guy from there. And we often talk about where guys are from, wanting to play there. I mean, Iafallo's had a great run in LA. He's come here. I mean, I've got a lot of time for Iafallo. I mean, he may be paying a little bit more than that. But I also think Alex Iafallo could fit in fine with Adam Lowry's line. But, they've got Appleton in that spot right now. I think he's capable of it. But I do think he has a caveat, and I think his value might be more to Buffalo than it would be some other teams. And you know what? If that is the sort of thing that could potentially put something together, I mean, I think it would make sense. And to your point, it would absolutely help the Jets from a cap situation with some other tough decisions moving forward based on we certainly haven't heard anything that anyone like Nate Schmidt's been on waivers right now. And it does seem like that buyout window might pass without the Jets doing anything for it.
Yeah, I mean, I was hearing yesterday that the Jets weren't looking at the buyout window at this time anyway. So just in terms of Iafallo, Huss, I mean, what do we know about Buffalo? 2 years ago when they missed the playoffs by 1 point, they're the high-octane, high-flying Sabres. But what did they not do well? They didn't get enough saves, and they did not defend at all. So while Alex Iafallo has, I think, put together, I want to say 6 double-digit goal seasons in a row after a first year with LA where as a rookie he had 9 goals. I mean, yes, he can give you complimentary scoring, which is important. But for a team like Buffalo, Huss, Alex Iafallo is he's the human eraser. Like, he's one of the smartest two, defensive players, even on the Jets roster. So he would go right at or near the top of the list as soon as he goes to Buffalo. So of course I could see that. And the other thing too, I could see him extending with the Jets, but not at $4 million, Huss, right? I mean, even with the cap going up, that number's too high. And Alex Iafallo loves the outdoors of Winnipeg, but I also think he would love playing for the Buffalo Sabres. And for a team that's trying to get back to the glory days of their organization, and I understand, glory days I'm using, I'm not trying to be facetious here. They were a competitive team. They just haven't made the playoffs in so long. And a guy, it wouldn't hurt them to wave the Chamber of Commerce flag from a guy who's from that area. But this is a very good hockey player that, played in a, winning program in LA. He's been around a lot of great leaders. I think he would take enormous pride playing for that team, and he can help them in a lot of ways. So again, I don't know about the particulars or what it would end up being, but It wouldn't just be a salary cap dump. It would be a guy that could help a team that needs help defending as they would move forward. And I think it would be, there's a lot of teams that would find Alex Iafallo a great fit, but a team like the Sabres probably can absorb the $4 million better than maybe say a little bit more of a contender that's a little further along in their development curve.
Yeah, and one thing that was reported by, I believe it was Elliott today, and again, we've talked to a lot of people and been listening to a lot of things.
Sure.
I want to make sure I get it right. But report, I'm pretty sure it was this morning on the 32, was that the Jets are listening to offers on Ehlers. Interested teams would like to have a contract extension in place before paying the Jets' price, and that makes all the sense in the world. If the Jets are trying to get maximum value for Ehlers, they'll have a much better chance of doing that if they're able to have him signed, sealed, and delivered on a long-term deal. And to be honest, Ken, just thinking about where we're at right now, what, about 4 hours away from the beginning of the draft, that could actually be happening right now over the course of the next few hours. And we don't know what Cheveldayoff is, talked about with other NHL GMs. But if that is the other side of the equation, this could be the time where a potential opposing GM getting Ehlers is talking turkey with the agent to make this deal possible. And if that happens, we could hear something. But I think there's a lot of moving pieces in it. And whether there's enough time to have Nikolai Ehlers and his agents agree on a place to go, as well as signing a long-term deal, I mean, if you talk about pressure points, there is a finite time to make this happen if you're going to do it in advance of the draft.
Only if a first-round draft pick is part of the package, though, Huss.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you don't need that.
I guess I should say what was
put
reported.
the framework together.
Yeah. The one thing I missed out was that it was a young NHL player and a first-round pick that was the ask for Nikolai Ehlers. So if they're going to get that, these are the things that would need to happen before tonight.
And again, I'm not trying to play devil's advocate or anything else. I just mean that same idea. Like, unless a first has to be part of the deal, then there's not as much of a. And it could be the framework too, right? When the Trouba deal was made, it didn't come with an extension, but you had a pretty clear picture that there was going to be an extension happening down the road, right? So, and again, it's super interesting. And the other part about that too, and Huss, we talked about it a couple weeks ago, and some people didn't agree with my assessment in terms of what the next contract looks like. Huss, if you're Nikolai Ehlers, I don't know that you need the contract extent. Like, you're still trying to show that you're a 30 to 35 plus 80-point player before you sign an extension, right? So unless a team's going to give you a contract based on that kind of projection, you're almost better off willing to roll the dice as Nikolai Ehlers, stay in Winnipeg, hope that your role expands. I mean, you're already in the top 6, but I'm talking about maybe more of a power play spot, potentially time on the top line. That would give him the best chance to pop at a 30 plus, 80 plus kind of season. And then you'd be much more willing to sign an extension when the cap is going up another, percentile here. But again, the Jets have not reached the point of no return with Nikolai Ehlers. So as much as we talk about pressure points, I don't necessarily think that a deal for Ehlers has to be made today either, just like a deal for McGroarty doesn't have to be made.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Ken Wiebe's with us. Great night last night seeing you at the awards. Connor Hellebuyck, and we were there in the scrum. Really interesting stuff. We're going to have that for folks coming up in a minute while we get the marble race ready on location today. But listen, just before we hook up in a little bit and get down to the Sphere, I know you've been talking to a lot of your colleagues around the league outside of the Winnipeg Jets, or maybe tied into the Winnipeg Jets being potential trade. What are the other teams that are intriguing you the most, and any other things that you think our listeners might be interested in as it pertains to watching the draft tonight and anything else surrounding it with all the NHL GMs together here in Sin City?
Yeah, for sure, Huston. I mean, it was a great night at the awards for sure. That was my first visit, and I agree with you. I thought Connor was very gregarious. A little bit, his answer was not expansive when Paul Maurice was brought up to him and a follow-up question was asked.
Far from it.
Yeah, nice gesture, but that conversation was over quickly. But again, I'm not blowing that out of proportion. That didn't make that was not something that really had my spider senses tingling by any chance. But for the Jets, I still think that I've said this and I've written it. Sean Monahan is a guy that the Jets are still very interested in signing. They want to keep him around for that 2C spot. Now it's just about term and dollar value. I think Monahan is interested in sticking around, but again, he wants to hold out as long as he can. And as a player, the player has the pressure point in this situation, Huss, because the closer that the player gets to July 1, the bigger opportunity you have to accept other offers, or at least field other offers that could potentially raise the value of the counter offer if there is one to be had. But I get the sense that Sean Monahan is someone that could still be a Winnipeg Jet beyond July 1st. I think that Brendan Dillon is going to generate a ton of intrigue on the open market. It looks like he's going to get there after the DeMello extension. I think that, with Nikita Zadorov, my team's looking for that big, bruising defenseman, and Brendan Dillon had an outstanding season. I mean, I would argue that he had a better season than Zadorov, even though Zadorov had the great playoff. And this is the time of year, Huss, where we always are reminded about sample size and recency bias. So, and that's what I mean about Zadorov. I mean, can Zadorov keep that level of play over the course of an entire season and the playoffs? I mean, I'm not saying he can't, but, some of the numbers being thrown around, 5, 6, 7 million. I mean, that would be a little bit rich for my blood if I were an NHL general manager. Now, that's an interesting little piece of the dynamic. And I'm not saying that A plus B equals C here, but Dean Chenoweth, the new Jets assistant, was the head coach in the minors when Nikita Zadorov was coming up. So I'm sure he's been asked his opinion on the player. And, does that mean the Jets are going to try to outbid a team for him? That I'm not saying, but I would say there's a little bit of a connection if they are looking at him. I think it's much more likely that a guy like, Alexander Carrier or Matt Roy would be a guy that would be on the list for that, second pairing right shot. But again, we'll see what transpires in the days leading up to Monday before we make any bold proclamations there. But in terms of other teams, Huss, I mean, there's a few that are interesting. Montreal making another deal here with the Kings to get another first round, or to move up in the draft in the first round. That is intriguing to me. Now, is that for their own pick, or is that for maybe potential for either moving up or to include in another deal? I mean, I think Montreal was one of the teams Mike and I have mentioned as a possibility. I mean, there's many teams interested, but I mean, Kent Hughes, Lane Hudson is there. Lane Hudson coming in, got some connections from the program there, obviously. So, could that be potentially something in the McGroarty sweepstakes? I'm not sure, but it could be. Columbus is appealing to me, or intriguing. I think they've got a lot of things going on around their team with under new management. The Carolina Hurricanes, some buzz from Elliot. He mentioned on the Pat McAfee show this morning that he thinks Jake Gensel is closing in on a deal with Carolina, potentially on an 8x8 extension. That would take a big piece off the market in terms of the scoring. And Steven Stamkos, Huss, I mean, he's a guy that since that first year where he scored his 60th in Winnipeg, not his 50th, right? Standing ovation. He's a guy that's going to generate incredible interest. We know the expectation is that he stays in Tampa, but what if he reaches the point where he can't believe it's taken this long and he decides to shop his services elsewhere? Also, Toronto Maple Leafs are intriguing to me. I still see Laurent Brossoit as a great candidate to be there. I know some people mentioning they think Anthony Stolarz could be that guy to share the net with Joseph Woll. I think that Brossoit would be a perfect partner for Woll, but there's a ton of teams interested. I mean, obviously, we know what happened with Calgary now, with Mangiapane going to join Pierre-Luc Dubois with the Washington Capitals. That's an interesting move. How deep will the rebuild go in Calgary? I think I'm not saying it's going to be scorched earth, and Darren Dreger reported that it's more of a reset, but we'll see what the next move for Craig Conroy is. There's lots of buzz around them that wanting T. Jiginla to be there for them at 9 or trying to move up. Outside of that, I'm interested in every team, Huss. So we're in Vegas. Would it surprise you if Kelly McCrimmon made a splash here and when his organization is holding the draft? Like, Kelly's not
Mitch Marner to Vegas confirmed.
Well, I'm just here to tell you that it will not surprise me. I haven't seen Kelly. I haven't had a chance to talk to him, and he wouldn't tell me anyway. That's not his nature. But I would be shocked if the Vegas Golden Knights are not involved somehow or don't have an announcement for the draft floor, whether that's an extension with an original misfit or if it's a trade or something to fire some people up at I was going to say T-Mobile, but they're not in T-Mobile. But in the sphere, I totally could see Kelly McCrimmon doing something like that. But again, he's not going to make a big swing just for the sake of the fact that it's in their town. He's trying to make his team better after a first-round exit,
for
just
sure,
1 year removed from winning the trophy. So I think that they're always a team to watch. And again, much like, very few teams have a surplus of high-end defensemen on their roster. And every team is looking for a high-end defenseman on their roster. And they're definitely not moving Hannafin, Huss. And they're definitely not moving Pietrangelo. So, and I don't think they're moving Theodore, but if one of those, if we're guessing on one of those three and they're changing the construction, Theodore would be the guy that could potentially be in play. Now, again, I'm not saying that he is in play, but you mentioned Marner. If there is a Marner deal to be had, Shea Theodore has to be part of it if you're Brad Treliving.
Well, that's what the Leafs certainly are. They have been rumored into Montour, Tanev.
Right.
Definitely looking to improve that blue line. Weber, finish up where you're at. Get down here. Grab your creds. Text me, and we'll head over to the Sphere. I'm looking forward to it. We'll see you in a bit. Thanks again. And, folks, when WST is over, you've got some Bomber with Bonfire, but Kenny and Rennie also have a little pop-up from last night the boys got together. And if you have not seen that, make sure to get over to the YouTube and check it out.
Yeah, thanks for the push. And again, I would be remiss, and I know that maybe the chatters just have a chance to throw some shots my way here, Huss, before we go out the door. But I would be remiss if I didn't say, impressive job by Paul Maurice to capture that first championship in that lengthy coaching career. The moment with Jamie Compon was one of those reasons why you watch after the trophy handshakes have happened and the trophy has been handed out. Paul speaking to the cup, Paul doing his interview with Kyle Bukauskas, mentioning the Maurice name with Beliveau, Richard,
that was
Lindsay,
cool.
and Howe. That was just absolutely phenomenal. And his moment sharing that with Jamie Compon, given what they've been through together. That's the stuff that if you're the producer of Hockey Night, when that's happening, you're getting yourself a raise. But yeah, just a touching moment with two people who really care about the community. And again, in terms of Kevin Stenlund and Dmitry Kulikov, two guys who worked really hard here during their time. And, the beauty of the cup being over, Huss, is that you can't wait till next season. The only bad news is it's not July yet and the season doesn't start till October. But we'll be busy over the next couple of days, and that's what's fun about, or what's part of what makes our job fun. And also, too, I got to say, the ability to connect with our colleagues and peers, and that's just something that is super special. I mean, you saw Mike Zeisberger last night, Huss, a couple months ago, serious health scare in a hospital bed for a long time. He's back at it, and certainly hasn't lost his intensity or sense of humor from
He's
the conversations
the best.
we had.
He was holding court at the lobby bar last night, and it was so great to see Zeiss, and I'll look forward to seeing him as well. Get a move on. We'll see you over here shortly.
Yeah, okay. Thanks, my man. Take care.
Right on. There is Ken Wiebe. And, just as we've finished this up, another roster spot open on the Columbus Blue Jackets. Chris Johnson reporting the Blues have acquired Alexander Texier from Columbus for a mid-round draft pick. And per Puckpedia, we're going to have to get used to Puckpedia now with Cap Friendly being shuttered in the next few days. He's been signed to a 2-year extension at a 2.1 AAV by the St. Louis Blues. All right, Remo, very shortly, we are going to not give you as much time today to register for the marble race because there's a lot going on. We got to get to the Sphere. Check out these jerseys from Fanatics. So pay attention to the chat when Michael Remis opens that up. Of course, hey, it is a long weekend, gang. And, well, with the weekend, may I remind you of our great partners at Little Brown Jug. And it's not just a Friday, it's a long weekend Friday. So let's raise a glass. And a big thanks to our friends at Generic Lager, your basic lager, just better. Little Brown Jug made the taste you crave with the name that says it all, with this impressively standard lager, perfect for the July long weekend. Whether you're at a Jets game, a Gold Eyes game, or watching from home, grab a cold one and cheers. Pick it up just in time to maybe head out of town at Little Brown Jug in the Exchange District at 336 William Avenue at your local LC or vendor. And now, of course, available at the ballpark and at Canada Life Center. Hey, another great spot if you aren't leaving town this weekend, head on over to the Beer Can. I know a lot of people headed over to the after party after the big Seabears win last night. Shout out to Justin Wright Foreman, CEBL record, 16 assists. Look at that, the Seabears. Byron Mullins has gone too. The two guys that got in the dust up, they're out. And the Seabears are back in the win column 3 in a row. Beer Can is where the Seabears after party is, but the Beer Can will be rocking all weekend long. the best place to have the wonderful beers of Winnipeg, all local, all available for you. Other great offerings and the amazing food from the Cosmos boys, serving it up there. They also do the food at next door at 116 Sherbrooke, another great spot to get in the heart of Wolseley. And, of course, Hoagie Boys down on South Osborne. Royal Sports, another good spot to hit before you head out of town. Check out the amazing Yeti section they have in the King Skate, Snow, and Surf side and pick up, whether it's soccer ball, softball, running, tennis, bikes, everything you need to dominate the long weekend and the rest of summer. In addition, the best selection of licensed merchandise for the home teams and all the big leagues, not to mention Canada Soccer, huge game tomorrow. We'll get to that in the Cool Bet lines and the top teams of Euro 2024 as well. Royal Sports, 750 Pembina Highway, at Royal Sports Winnipeg on Instagram for the latest merchandise drops and sale information. And hey, great spot to watch the draft tonight or the Bombers tomorrow is, of course, your local Boston Pizza. And don't forget Canada and Chile tomorrow. I want to say 5 p.m. Central Time. The clock's all done. Check your local listings, if you will. But listen, when there's a big game on, no better place to watch than your local BP. Gourmet pizzas, world-famous wings, and, of course, those ice-cold scooters. And, hey, if you are staying at home, watching the draft on the couch with the volume cranked, you can order online at bostonpizza.com. All right, Marbles registration is open. Before we get to that, we did want to get to a little bit of Connor Hellebuyck from last night. And, as we mentioned, it was a lengthy, I think there was 22 questions thrown at Connor. I mean, a few from myself, a few from Ken, but also some really interesting questions, not necessarily about the Jets and Hellebuyck, but the awards overall. We've picked out a few of the best ones, Remo, and why don't we fire a few of these out for folks to get a little bit more of our Vezina trophy winning goaltender who finally got to do it at a legit award ceremony in front of fans.
Yeah, really excited to be there with his family and a group of supporters. Huge cheer when he was announced. Here's Hellebuyck on the team's success this past season. I don't know if that came through, but it's supposed to. This thing is the worst. So
did it? Let us know in the chat if you were able to hear Connor or if you did not hear Connor.
I don't
just saw him looking amazing.
Yeah, I don't know what the heck's going on here. I don't have an answer. This mixer is the worst. So I can try one more thing, and then it'll go through. But I tested it. It should have worked.
All right, well, let's give it one more shot, and if we can't, the one thing, we did post the entire.
It is on our YouTube, yeah.
So,
yeah.
And listen, I would suggest, if you were like me, that is, listen, Hellebuyck, you all know, my favorite guy to listen to. He is very thoughtful. He gives great answers, and he's just a very, very unique personality. And he doesn't have much of a filter. He tells you exactly what he feels, which was. And I know Ken just brought it up and didn't take too much. I did a little bit. I asked him at the end about Rick Bowness and how he'll look back at the 2 years under Rick Bowness, and he gave an incredible answer. And you could tell the amount of appreciation and love that he had for Rick. It really comes out in that answer. The other side of it, someone from outside of the market, and again, I don't know who it was, asked him about Paul Maurice, mentioning, that he hopes the Winnipeg Jets win the Stanley Cup. And he basically said, well, I hope he's right. And then he was asked again, what about the gesture? And he very quickly, I don't want to say curtly, just said, well, it was a nice gesture, and then completely moved on. So there was some really good stuff. Do you want to try one more, or are you just going to get to it? All right, sounds good.
I don't want to try. Check our YouTube. We got to get out of here anyways. I downloaded this update, so...
That's
check our channel for all the things. Shout out to Dave Manuka, actually, who took the time and wrote time codes on each one of the questions. So go to our YouTube channel and check the videos. We did post one of those as an Instagram reel. Follow us on Instagram. Hope to have some stuff from the Sphere tonight on our story.
Yeah, we will. And the IC guys, I think, are going to be cranking out. I'm not sure whether they're going to do a live for the entire draft or whatnot, but check out the Illegal Curve channel tonight. And we will try and jump on with them, whether it's tonight or whether it's tomorrow morning during their program, with a little bit more from Vegas. And, of course, we'll have more on the Winnipeg Sports Talk YouTube tomorrow, presumably speaking with who the Jets pick in the second round, unless they get into it tonight. But this entire trip made possible by the great support from our friends at Coolbet. Had a great time in the lock shop today with Jake Boland Moss, looking ahead to everything going on tonight. NHL draft odds are up. I'm going to throw one at you. Oh my God, look at this. Remember I was talking about in the lock shop Zeev Boyum?
Yes.
Plus 275 for third overall pick. He's now minus 200.
Oh.
So I hope you got in. I hope you were watching. That's the sort of tips we give in the lock shop. Zeev Boyum, really interesting prospect. He looks like he's going number 3 to the Anaheim Ducks for the second overall pick, minus 400 for Levshinov, the big Russian defenseman that was playing at Michigan State. And as we heard on 32 today, it does really seem like the draft is sort of starting at 4, at least according to Merrick and Friedman, who, I'll be honest, have a pretty darn good track record of throwing things out on their show before it happens. Go to Coolbet. This is my favorite prop for tonight. First person, the number 1 overall pick, hugs at the NHL draft. This, of course, will be Macklin Celebrini. Mother, plus 100, even money. Father, plus 150. Sibling, 4-1. Partner, 12-1. To me, it's mom or dad. I actually like the value on the dad because of how close they are. Of course, Celebrini's dad is the strength and conditioning coach for the Golden State Warriors. I'm sure it was incredibly important on this journey the whole way, but of course, moms too. And the moms always go first. So, mother 100 plus 100, father plus 150. You can get on that and a whole bunch of other props if you want to focus in on a particular player or other options. It's all up at Coolbet right now. Also, tomorrow, Canada playing Chile. Chile's a big favorite. Canada, I like the draw in this one. A draw will get us, Canada, through to the next round, presuming Peru doesn't beat Argentina, even without Lionel Messi. That would be a shocker. So check that out. And do not forget the elimination games. The knockout round of the Euro begins, tomorrow. All the odds are up for the next 8 matches at Euro. It is all there at Coolbet. And don't forget, if you're betting CFL this weekend, every single weekend you get a free 20% win boost on one of the CFL games. Up-to-date lines. Big cover last night by the Elks. Alouettes 3-point favorites in Toronto. The Bombers are now 3.5-point favorites in Calgary. Have they seen the depth chart? I'll just be happy with the win. 3.5, though, for Winnipeg. And the Hamilton Tiger Cats, 1-point underdogs, even money on the money line. Again, it's all there at coolbet.com, our great partners. The NHL draft shows presented by Coolbet. If you haven't played there before, use the promo code WST for a 100% bonus up to $300. Why not question of the day today? As we sit here right now, 3.5 hours or so before the draft, do you think the Winnipeg Jets make a move tonight with either Rucker McGroarty or Nikolai Ehlers? Where's the chat at on that? I know some people want particular things. Everyone's got their eyes on a particular asset to come back to Winnipeg. I'm just talking about the reality of this based on our conversations with Murat and Ken. Do you think something happens right now, or is this a story that drags on throughout the summer, knowing that the Jets really do not have to move either of these players? I guess it'll depend on what's out there, but let us know in the chat. The why not question of the day for Not Autocorp over at Waverly and McGillivray. And Waverly and McGillivray and our great friends and been with us for a long time. All right. Remo, you want to do a last call here for marbles, everybody? If you haven't gotten in already, do it now. We'll give you 30 seconds to get those in, and then Remis can start that off. Shout out to the Gold Eyes who are on the road. The Fish are back next week, I believe a week today, starting another homestand for a couple series. 9 games on the road right now after that 9-gamer at home. We look forward to doing another WST Goldeye game later on this year. But goldeyes.com for ticket information, groups, patio party, and more, all available over there from our friends at the Goldeyes. And, of course, the Assiniboia Downs is back on Monday. Canada Day, great night to get out to the track. We'll be all over it again with our head-to-head picks beginning on Tuesday. But go to asdowns.com for more information on everything happening on the weekends when live racing is not happening, and then Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday for live racing. A quick Breezy Bend golf update. And we're very happy in the lock shop because our guy, Akshay Bhatia, 13 under par at the Rocket Mortgage. He has the lead by 2 shots over Taylor Montgomery and Troy Merritt. Hopefully another win for the lock shop. Akshay was at 20-1 to win this tournament. And a huge shout to our golf sponsors, Breezy Bend Country Club. I know there'll be a lot of people enjoying the beautiful condition of Breezy this weekend. If you're thinking about a long-term home for you and your family at one of Winnipeg's top private courses, talk to our pal Corey Johnson about membership for the 2025 golf season. And you can also inquire there or at breezybend.ca for more information on membership or rentals for things such as weddings. Beautiful spot to tie the knot. And hey, I got to shout out our gang at Aikens Lake. Back-to-back master anglers I saw from a group on the Instagram today. Less than, or I guess just over a month, we'll be getting out to Aikens. Cannot wait for that. If you're thinking about an incredible fly-in fishing experience here in Manitoba where you can be on the water in less than 2 hours from the city of Winnipeg, Aikens Lake is the spot. Inquire online at aikenslake.com for more information and for availability on the rest of the 2024 fishing season. A big shout out to Pitt, Pat, and the entire Aikens team. Looking forward to seeing you all a little later on this year. All right, Remo, let's bang out a little marble race on the road. I guess let's do a traditional track today, one of our favorites, to expedite the process. And again, for our winner today, hang tight because we're actually out of a couple sizes. We'll be getting more hoodies right now. Hopefully we will have your size, but we won't be able to get this one to you until next week. But whoever wins, you can send us an email with your size. We'll get that done up. Shout out to our friends at Shipman Associates for the hoodies that all of our champions in the Friday Marble Race have enjoyed. It's a good way to kind of take the tension out of the draft, get into some marbles for everyone. And by the way, thanks to everyone. Well over 750 in the live chat today. Great to see how excited everyone is for a lot of intrigue around the Winnipeg Jets. And again, we didn't want to spend too much time on the Line story from yesterday, but it sort of speaks for itself, the feedback that we got from yesterday's show, the clip that we had with Mike, and you can count me in that in that group that it's pretty excited thinking about that prospect. Whether it'll happen or not, time will tell. But I do think we'll have some more interesting conversations when everyone's together at the Severe tonight. And as I said, stay tuned to the Winnipeg Sports Talk channel throughout Saturday for more. We'll bang out some interviews. We'll probably put together what might be a little mini show, but certainly there'll be interviews and more from the Sphere over the next couple days that we'll be posting both on social, but the YouTube is the place to be. And make sure you're subscribed to the channel, not only to get all the content that we're cranking out, but also to be eligible to win the marble race. Can you please put me in Hustler in all caps in this before we do?
Actually, sure.
Yeah.
After I just loaded them, sure.
The guys will not forgive me. There's lots of back and forth about the our head-to-head matchups right now. The guys missed last week. I got in, but I said, listen, I'll be in all caps, Hustler. Let's
go.
We
have 282 marbles in the race. I do want to give a show. We had over 700 in chats, the most we've had in a long time. We did get a very generous super chat there. Ken007 says, make sure to buy Murat a beverage there. So we do.
Done deal.
So we owe Murat a beverage. And Lori Love and Life, welcome to the WST supporters group, getting that silver microphone.
Hey, what's up,
beside her
Lori?
name. Shout
Thank
out.
you.
But we got to get this show. I'm not going to play the theme song because I don't trust that it's actually going to play.
But we'll just shout out Tristan Rivers as it is. You want us to maybe sing it?
No.
Yeah, no, maybe not.
No, nobody wants that.
We can just do the loud luxury, the DJ things. This is the move.
I think this guy was just doing this, like twisting knobs.
What a job that is. Just finger bobs.
I think they do it all before, and you have to get your dance moves on. But yeah, Loud Luxury was there at the awards, and I was like, I know that song. Body of Mine, I think, was the name, and they played it like 3 or 4 times along with some other mixes. So we had a good time at the awards.
Body of Mine? I thought it was Party All Night.
No.
Like I was wrong on every word of the title.
Anyways, I'm going to go to the marble race here. It's on this screen.
Yes. All right. We got it. Where are we? We're going for the old, the Rusty Remnant.
Yeah, I feel like we haven't done Rusty Remnant for a while.
Sounds good.
I think that one fit with what's going on today. So.
All right, let's do this. Good luck to everyone. Thanks for a massive Friday show. And again, should be a great weekend. We'll have plenty of content coming out. NHL Draft, WST, presented by Coolbet. Thanks again to Jake Pat for their amazing support of us. And if you did miss the lock shop, you can check that out over at the EST earlier today. Although our tip on Zeev Byam at plus 275 for third overall pick, long gone right now. He's now gone down to minus 200.
Shout out to everyone in chat who's typing in the words to the Marble Race song.
You guys are the best.
There's Russ Lowen says, phone the whole day in, so lax, you can't deny.
It's your boy Bruce. You're booking us for the next gig. Well, listen, Bruce is a DJ himself. You can actually do the music, and I can just do the loud luxury.
There you
just
go.
Look cool into the crowd and do that. It's a great move.
I think
we practiced a lot last night.
Is that part of DJ school, like what you do when the music's like the dance moves you need when the music's playing? It's got to be part of it.
It has to be. It's a performative art. All right, 280 plus marbles. Let's do this. Rusty Remnant live from Vegas for finishing off our big Friday show and then heading over to the Sphere. Stay tuned to the channel the rest of the weekend for more content on our YouTube, and we'll also get some clips out on our socials. Trevor Red Ranger with a lead. I think Trevor Red Ranger won a little while ago. He's going to pick up a hoodie for a junior. Adam Wisnowski though in first. Let's see, Carl Dirk's in there in the mix. Big Tyson Ducharme in it. There's Bob McCullough. All right, we're all coming into. Who do we got? Son of Dirk, Eric Shorlifson. What's up, Eric? Amy Wiebe in the mix. Oh, Darren Chalice. What's up, Darren? Darren's in first. He's on the right side. We got Josh Conway leading the league, leading the way on the left. Here we go. Okay, Darren Chalice in first place. K6000 also looking good. Drew Music. Thought that was Drew Mindell for a minute. But it is not. All right, D. Chalice, Camaro 928. Oh, wow, look at that transition right through the globe. Excellent work by Son of Dirk. K6000, Russ Lowen. Luka Rabchak. I think that's Connor's little bro. Wouldn't that be something if Luka could come in? I don't know where Connor's at, but Luka has some speed in the Rusty Remnant today. It is Son of Dirk. Luka, we're slowing down a little bit. This might be the more uphill version of it. But this is going to come right down to it. Oh, look at this. Luka Rabchak, I believe, has the lead. Little brother of Connor Rabchak, the third member of the WST team. By the way, Connor did a great job clipping everything from yesterday with that monster, lining one that we had. Luka. Oh, the Gitch has entered the chat in the left. Sean Gitch Lishka, WST legend. Adam Wisnowski, Luka Rabchak. This is going to be quite it. No, Luka definitely made the right run. Lori is now in the mix, has taken over the lead. Coops, Hockey Dad, Hockey mom's usually in with quite a bit. Now we see hockey dad in the mix. Here we go. We're getting down to the nitty gritty. Laurie with nice execution past the last obstacle, and it's Laurie. Laurie's our winner. Coops in second. Vinny in third. Doug Phil, D. Chalice, Scott Wiebe, Hockey Dad, Sam Harris at 8, Victor Owen at 9, and how about that for a debut from Connor's little bro, Luka Kravchak, 10th, a top 10 finish. I'm not sure whether your big bro has ever had a top 10 finish, Luka. So very, very well done. We'll let everybody pop in. We'll do a quick rundown of the results. Rusty Remnant, that was a great track. I think we only had a couple of people going over the top rope or eliminated. Here comes Rob Pepper. S. James, Southside Vinny, Swervin' Wervin, Shelley Dahlman popping in at the end. Now, will S. James or Southside Vinny? Yeah, they got burnt. Laurie, 177. Way to go, Laurie. Fire us an email, winnipegsportstalk@gmail.com, Laurie, and let us know what size of hoodie you take, and we'll be in touch next week. Or if you want to just wait till next week to send us in, that's fine. We've got a lot going on here, but let us know, and we'll make that happen. All right, going down this list, see Cowboy, there's Dustin, nicely done. Give everybody a chance to see where they ended up. I'm looking for all caps. I want to see how I did today. Dallas Calls, Pretty and Pionk. There's Duck Dad. Shout out to the Lock Shoppers and everyone from EST. There's James Stevenson. Nicely done, James. Mrs. Jones. I haven't seen Bozeman. Ross.
There's Ross, 179.
Ross is 178. There's Bozeman. Oh, my God. They were 1-2. Really? Or 179 and 180 right beside each other.
God.
And where looks at it from the and I was 200th on the nose. I took an L today. Todd Fertani, what's up, Todd? Royal Sports, the gang's at Royal. There's Amanda. Oh, former Amanda, 243. You're gonna need to. Hopefully that's not an indication of your weekend performance, because I know you're gonna dominate the weekend, especially a long weekend right now. All right, that's gonna do it for us, gang. Again, we are off very shortly to the Sphere. Cannot wait to see it. We'll fire off pics on our Instagram and our X account. And Kevin Cheveldayoff is going to be speaking later on. We will be there. We will have all of that for you as well. So stay in touch with us on social media. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel and turn the notifications on. So immediately when something comes up, if something happens, if we've got a new interview, if Cheveldayoff has spoken, we'll have it all there for you in its entirety on the Winnipeg Sports Talk YouTube channel. One final huge thanks to you to Coolbet for making this all possible. Stay tuned throughout the weekend. And first of all, have a great Canada Day long weekend, everybody. And for those of you that'll be out at Princess Auto Stadium on Monday, as long as we get back in time, now that the strike has been averted, hopefully we will see you there. Remo, great stuff. And now it's time to really get this day going and get over the Sphere and get this draft on the road.
Yeah, this is going to be a lot of fun. Feels like it really starts with round one. I'm curious about what graphics and what elements of the Sphere they're going to use. They've had the draft logo on the Exosphere. That's the outer portion that's going 24/7.
Exosphere.
Yeah, that's the name. But the inside, they have that massive screen that's floor to ceiling. And they have, I think, sound built into all the seats, too. That's why it's so good for concerts. U2, it's Grateful Dead now, Eagles coming. So this is the most unique venue the draft has ever been at, will ever be at. So very excited to see what it's all about.
We'll be cranking it out at Hustlerama, at M. Remis, and then obviously Sports Talk WPG for all of the Jets and draft content presented by Coolbet. Have a great long weekend. Enjoy the draft tonight, and be sure to stay tuned for more content coming from us right through the weekend here live from Vegas. We'll talk to you a little later on the socials and on YouTube. Have a great one, and we'll see you for a regular show back in the Peg Tuesday talking NHL free agency and a full recap of draft weekend around the league. And of course, fingers crossed, the Bombers can get into the win column. That's going to do it for us, folks. We'll get at you later on from the Sphere.
Oh my God! Oh! Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily.